So far, we've dealt with individual decision making, and we've worked our way up to individual demand and supply curves. We're now going to proceed to talk about markets, and as a result we'll have to work with market or aggregate demand and supply curves. We'll see how we add up individual demand curves and individual supply curves in this graph. We'll begin with one individual demand curve, the magenta demand curve labeled D1 here. Then we'll consider a second individual demand curve, the green demand curve labeled D2 here. Above the price of 90, only individual 1 will buy any of these goods. Therefore, the blue portion of the magenta demand curve becomes the market demand curve for prices above 90. But for the other points indicated here, both individuals will consume, and so we'll have to add up how much they consume to arrive at the market demand curve. At a price of 80, for instance, consumer 2 along the green demand curve demands 10 units of the output, while consumer 1 along the magenta demand curve demands 20 units. Together they therefore demand 30 units of the output, which is the aggregate demand at a price of 80. At a price of 60, on the other hand, both consumers demand 30 units of the output, making the aggregate demand at a price of 60 equal to 60 units of the output. Repeating this for each of the points on the two demand curves, we therefore derive the aggregate or market demand curve, assuming these are the two individuals in the market. At a price of 40, for instance, consumer 1 demands 40 units of the output, and consumer 2 demands 50 units of the output. We therefore get 90 units of the output as the market demand. In panel B, we'll do exactly the same thing for market supply curves. We begin again with two individual supply curves, the magenta supply curve for firm 1 and the green supply curve for firm 2. Below a price of 40, only firm 2 supplies any of the output, so firm 2's supply curve becomes the market supply curve below a price of 40 if these are the only two firms in the market. This is indicated by the blue segment of the green supply curve. For prices at or above 40, on the other hand, both firms will supply some of the output. At a price of 40, for instance, firm 1 will supply 10 units and firm 2 will supply 20 units. So together they'll supply 30 units of the output, which will be our market supply at a price of 40. Repeating this at each of the prices, we then get the market supply curve much as we derived the market demand curve in panel A. Deriving market demand and supply curves from individual demand and supply curves therefore simply involves adding up these curves horizontally. Of course, in real markets we have many more than 2 consumers or 2 producers, and so we'll add them across many consumers and many producers. There is an exception to this, which we'll run into a little bit later in the chapter, which involves long-run supply curves. But we'll leave that topic for later.